Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the Wyrm sign event, in which the Dragon Spirit is added to the game. And of course, last week we ended up getting version 5.5 of Gems of War. With it, we got a nice repick feature that we didn't really get to use much for the last campaign, but we'll be able to for next campaign in a week from now, since of course we have Tower of Doom this week, which seems to happen once every forever. But anyways, we got the ability to repick tasks, which is pretty nice now, because that basically means whenever we have a multi-day task, a 2-day one or a 3-day one, we can simply just skip it and get it done immediately. So on reset day every single time, we'll be able to get all the tasks done. You could also use it to get rid of some of the more annoying ones, like arena or treasure hunt or other things that you may not want to do. We also got the introduction of power gems. Of course, currently right now we have the Uber Doomskull, which also has an achievement attached to it, which basically just does a 5x5 explosions minus the corners and does 10 additional damage, basically just a more effective version of a Doomskull. And next season, as well as likely most upcoming seasons, if not every upcoming season, we're going to get new power gems introduced to the games that will basically be available during the duration of the campaign, and might also make a comeback at various times, just if they feel like triggering it for like a weekend or a week, or however they end up doing it after the fact. Basically, the lycanthropy one, we don't know all the details with it yet, but it is likely to replace purples, have about a 1 in 30 chance of happening onto the board naturally, and is very likely to apply lycanthropy to a random enemy when being taken off the board. So that's pretty much what that's going to be doing. So yeah, quite a few interesting things. We'll see how exactly it pans out and switches up things. But anyways, let's go over the new troop. It comes in with a lot of yellow-purple arcanes. If you want to stock up on these things, definitely a good time to do so. Only 200 glory each, since you're getting 2 per 400. As far as your troop itself, not really that good. There's really only one reason you would use this, and it's because the new legend that's in the event queue drop table. I'm not sure why, but they decided to add 1 billion legends all at once. Felt like we haven't been getting some for quite some time, and now we basically got 3 legends in the event key drop table in the last 4 weeks. So hope you guys been saving up those event keys or farmed a bunch last weekend for the vault event, because gosh, we've been getting a lot of them, though I believe this is the last one for a while, luckily. Anyways, as far as your troop, it's pretty useless. You'd only really use it with the new legends that came out. As far as what it does a bunch of scatter damage, and there's a 75% chance to enchant all allies. There's currently 2 other dragons that do pretty similar. One that does burn to all enemies, and the other one that does disease to all enemies. Basically, this is one of the positive ones, in that it ends up doing enchant to your team instead of something negative to the opposing team. Aside from that, nothing really too interesting. A little bit of extra magic per cast, a little bit of mana immunity, and has some spell reduction. Overall, nothing really too special. However, its main purpose is, of course, to be used with the new legend that we have this week, which I might as well go over to next. So as far as the event key drop table, it is, of course, restricted to Dragon's Claw. Absolutely everything you see here is available, except for the patent. This can only be obtained from Guild Wars on occasion. However, everything else that you see here is indeed available in the event key drop table this week. Quite a few good mana accumulators here, like Egg Thief. Dragon Soul is a really nice pickup for soul farming, as well as mana accumulation throughout the game. Okay, I was wondering where it is under T, because it's the Dragon Soul, but there's a bunch of mana accumulation and soul gain there, pretty nice. The high spell reduction in the game is in this kingdom. However, Tina 9000 actually tends to be a little bit better than it due to its armor gain, but still relevant. But anyways, most relevant thing here, or at least as far as new things, this is new. So this is a new legend in the event key drop table that just dropped now. It'll be available this week in the event key drop table, and then it won't be available for about another month after, so make sure to get it now. It is basically used entirely for its final trait, which of course is 50% dragon start. This is pretty nice, because Dragon Guard hero class now can start with half mana for the first time ever, which is a pretty solid hero class that was mostly just held back by the fact it couldn't half mana start. But there it is. Also gets a yellow storm, which is a little bit of synergy with some stuff. And as far as what its ability does, it summons 1 to 3 that Dragon Spirit, which was the one we were just going over for glory. And if there's already a Dragon Spirit, it'll end up exploding 10 gems. One really weird thing about this ability is if you don't currently have a Dragon Spirit on your team, and all your team slots are filled, this will basically do nothing. Like, it's an ability that quite literally will do nothing. So a little bit of an underwhelming ability. Surprised it doesn't have a third effect of some kind. Even if you do have that Spirit Dragon on your team, you're still only getting 10 explosions, which is basically just a weaker Divinia. So unless you're really using it for that final trait, it's actually not that good at all, because its ability is pretty useless in most situations. At least luckily It's a pretty low mana cost, at least relative to a legend. But still, it doesn't have much going for it. It's pretty much almost entirely used for that 50% mana start, ideally with dragons that also end up utilizing yellow, as that yellow store might go a little bit unused otherwise. So it's still going to be pretty situational when you would actually end up using this, and definitely among one of the weaker things that have a 50% mana start, of course some of the stronger ones being the skull spam ones, like Divinia and Forest Guardian and stuff like that. However, yeah, this one's definitely towards the weaker end of the things that ended up getting 50% mana start, but still something new. And of course the two mythics here are okay, they're a little bit loopy, but overall don't tend to get used. The Elamagrim and Ishtar are both a different looping one for purple, one for yellow. Overall I would say Elamagrim is a little bit better, especially since it has Impervious, a little bit attack reduction, and has a better time with getting burn onto the enemies, which you can easily just do with like an Infernus or something similar. And yeah, overall, pretty decent drop table. I would definitely advise opening some event keys. A lot of really good pickups out there between Divinia, Dragonian Monk, Egg Thief, the new legend, the Spell Reduction Troop, Dragon Soul. You're definitely going to get something useful, so good time to be throwing some event keys if nothing else. But the mythics here aren't particularly good. You'd mostly just get it for upgrading purposes from this location. Other than that, we do have 10% to all Dragon's Claw this week. We do have 10% to all dragons, which is a good 20% to a good majority of that kingdom. And if you want to use this useless thing in PvP, it does end up giving you double trait stones this week. Anyways, as far as the guild event, we do have Tower of Doom, that one event that comes basically once a year, or at least it feels like it. We do have a new weapon. Make sure to get that for 500 gems. Highly advise doing so, as these things are exceedingly expensive to get after the fact. So just better to do it now with 500 gems, and it's not really that useful, but just to have it so you won't need to worry about it at a later time. It would be good to do so if you have the Spirit Gems. You can get it from Soulforge instead if you so choose, like right now. However, 500 gems is generally going to be the way to go, and it helps out your guild. As far as this event, still the same thing as always. Go for basically report back to your guild what all the good rooms are, as far as where the unlocks are, the fireballs, the heroisms, the powers, and pretty much anything of relevance is reported back to your guild, and just get it all scouted, and then your guild can just do the correct rooms, and then you just keep progressing from there. Overall, definitely a event that requires the most amount of communication with your guild, so you know where all the better rooms are, and it does require at least one person every single time, whoever's in the lead, to scout out every single room, so that it saves everyone else a bunch of sigils, so you all don't need to end up spending even more on it. However, if everyone in your guild ends up buying to tier 4, you should easily be able to get it done, even with all the scouting and everything. This is one of those events where even if your guild does have all the rewards fully completed, you do want to do it all the way to 25, as in getting to floor 26, completing out floor 25, as you will get an additional upgrading scroll that you'll be able to use to upgrade yellow Doom weapons. And of course, the main Doom weapon that you want to upgrade first, as far as all the categories, are the ones that do full AoE damage. So that one yellow one that ends up doing so, the Doom, I actually completely forget which one this is, but the Doomed Doom Dax is the one that you would want to upgrade, assuming you own it. And if you don't own it, save them for this, because this is the best thing that you can end up upgrading with the scrolls that you will be getting. And you get them all the way up to the 25th completion of the Dooms. So once you're at 26, you know you've done them all. So yeah, make sure to upgrade that. Even if you don't have it, just save it for those, because that's the main thing you'd want to end up putting into for when it ends up rolling around. Anyways, aside from that, this Tuesday we have a Fang More event for the faction. Wednesday we're going to be getting the Dragon's Claw pet, that little dragon and egg thing. One that we already had for quite a while, but we'll be able to get again. Thursday we have Dragon Guard Hero class, which technically got a little bit of a buff this week, indirectly, in the sense that it now technically can start with half mana start. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. And Friday, we have a raid event. That raid event will be bringing in a Wild Plains exploding weapon, another one of those nice exploding weapons. Be interesting to see how the meta ends up shifting a little bit, as Hero gets like a billion different exploding weapons. It's been getting more and more over time, and it seems like it's going to get one for every single typing within the game, with the next one being for specifically Wild Plains. So it's going to give a bunch of positive stats effect to Wild Plains troops, as well as summoning Wild Plains troops, which quite a few of them have boost ratio based on all their stats. And there's a few pretty good ones in there, like Ketris, a couple of Gnolls, and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Overall, probably won't be the best out of all of them, but definitely has the potential to be at least half decent. And of course, you can also be synergized with those kind of troops already on your team in order to apply positive stats effects to them, and use as a mana accumulation option in that regard. Anyways, as far as Soulforge, we have Ferris Ra again. So, Ferris Ra, was this available like, what, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? Well, we just got a reset on the Soulforge, so he's available again. So if you didn't pick him up a couple weeks ago, he's available now. Though do keep in mind, if you are hunting for Ferris Ra, it'll be quite some time if you don't get him before the end of this week, as since the Soulforge cycle just reset, could be about 4 or 5 months or so before we end up seeing Ferrous Raw again in Soulforge. It'll be quite some time since we're right at the beginning of the new Soulforge set and has to go through all of them before we can go through all of them again. So yeah, it's going to be a long while before you can get Ferrous Raw again. You'll probably be able to get them for event keys before you're going to be able to get him in Soulforge again. So if you don't get him by this week, it'll be quite a long gap until he rotates back around. So do be wary of that. But yeah, he's the best soul farming troop in the entire game, 150% bonus. You can still soul farm without him, however, it is substantially quicker to have at least one copy, and ideally two, but just getting one is perfectly fine, as there are plenty of teams that do run with just one Ferrous Raw these days. Aside from that, you could probably ignore most rest of what is available this week. Holy Saint Astra, if you end up getting a Tesla, can be pretty good in early game because it gives that 50% mana start for it. However, generally, as legends tend to be, it's not really worth going out of your way to craft legends, as you'll have every legend in the game way before you have every mythic, but it does have that Tesla synergy. One other thing to mention, this actually came out on version 5.5 last week. Actually came out on Tuesday, which is why we weren't able to cover it in the video last week. However, we do have the Leonis Tower, so this is a new mythic that was added to the game that is kind of like Zugoff and Enraged Carindare, in that it's always going to be available in the Soulforge. This is actually the lowest mana cost mythic in the game, and it also is the first player-owned troop that counts as a tower, which is pretty cool. It does require the Emperor, which was handed out during the Season Pass last season. However, if you did not obtain the Emperor last season, you will be able to go and get it from Vault Keys in about 4 weeks from now. So next Vault event, if you grind it out very heavily, if you don't have that many Vault Keys left, you'll be able to go and hopefully pick up yourself a Emperor. And it does not consume the Emperor to craft this, so you can craft as many as you want. And it's pretty cheap as far as a mythic is concerned, at least relative to 4,000 diamonds. This is way cheaper. It's only 250 legendary ingots is basically all it costs, since mythics normally cost souls to begin with anyways. So pretty much the only thing you're really spending is a bunch of ingots, which quite a few people tend to have a surplus of, given how many of the Underworld and Tuesday events and everything, as well as new faction events, end up giving. So this mythic's pretty much just free. As far as what ends up doing, it is pretty strong, but it does have two main downsides. One is it's a tower, so you're not ever going to be able to get 50% mana start on it. Best you could do is 20%. And the other big downside is also that it is a tower, because that means a lot of troops can do 5 times damage to it. So in PvP-like situations, as well as when you're doing Explore, it's probably not the best of idea, because yeah, it's just going to get one-shotted by those hard counter troops that have the Slayer ability against it. However, aside from that, it does have some pretty decent abilities. So for one, it has Stone Skin, 50% score reduction, pretty solid, quite literally. It has Invulnerable, one of only a few troops that our player owns that has this. There's currently only 8, and is one of only 2 viable ones, this and Enraged Carindare. And arguably, this thing actually is better than Enraged Carindare. And it also gets a stun a random enemy when matching yellows. This is actually a great alternative to Obsidious if your team doesn't really fit Obsidious because of coloration, or because you just want to do something different. You can end up going with this. Yeah, a pretty good stunner. Obsidious is still better of a stunner. However, there are situations where you might opt to use this rather than an Obsidious. It also gets to deal damage to the first 2 enemies, which is kind of like a Corvash. This almost reminds me of Corvash pre-nerf, but without the mana drain, because it also gets to stun the first 2 enemies. And Corvash used to have Stone Skin until it got nerfed. And he also gets to gain Barrier after that, so pretty tanky between the Barrier, the 50% scar reduction, and the immunity to pretty much everything in the entire game. So overall, definitely worth considering. It's pretty cheap as well, so once you end up getting the Emperor, it can be a little bit hard to try to find him off of Vault Keys in about 4 weeks from now, but definitely worth considering. And next Vault event, you just be able to grind it out. Of course, we just had one last weekend, but every Vault weekend here forth, we'll be able to have Emperor as a drop, so do be wary of that. Anyways, as far as the weapons, there's not really anything you would really need to worry about. If you want to pick up anything just for completionist sake, you can. However, there isn't really anything you'd necessarily need to go out of your way for. I believe Mace of Claws has some synergy occasionally, just because it has that dragon synergy there. But overall, nothing you really want to pick up. Obviously, Doomed Focus you ideally want to get from 500 gems from the event, rather than spending diamonds for it. And most rest of the stuff, unless you're just getting it for completionist sake, you could pretty much just ignore. Or if you want to get like one of the super cheap weapons, to have another easy to upgrade weapon for the weapon requirements for the kingdom. But nothing is really important as far as weapons, and are pretty much just there for leveling purposes. Anyways, got a lot of teams to go show, so let's start getting into that teams, one of which I actually do want to use as well. Actually, this one. Yeah, let's go do this first. So, of course, the Uber Doomskull. If you haven't already gotten the achievement, one pretty easy way to go about this is to go and do a team kind of like this, pretty cheap one as well. It's a Urskia Shield, Thrall, Azarus, and a Dragonian Monk down there. So basically the whole premise with this is we're going to... Hey, we got a Monk as well. So basically the whole premise with this is that we basically just do some Doomskulls next to our pokes, and we're pretty much good to go. So we just throw this down, try to get this thing aligned as often as we possibly can. And it does look like I'm going to have to go for Destroy here. So unfortunately, we do have to destroy it. Destroying it does not count, or at least on PC it doesn't, unless they fixed it since then. So you do have to manually go and take it. And Azarus is pretty much the way that we're trying to do this. So we basically just keep cycling the board over and over again until we end up getting a Uber Doomskull back onto the board. And then we basically just go and try to match it. We can use Dragonian Monk to barrier up to make sure we don't die. And then we just keep spamming our mana over and over again, and pretty much good to go. So right here, we'll go for a couple barriers just to make sure they don't really take any damage. And we just keep cycling the board until we can ideally end up getting a Uber Doomskull. And just keep repeating that. We could do it on Explore 12, mostly just to make sure that we end up getting it done. Oh wait, can we even do that there? That was actually past our turn. But we end up doing on Explore 12 just to make sure we don't actually end up killing out the battle too quickly. Otherwise, that could definitely end up happening. We're getting some really bad boards here. We'll try moving that down, trying to get it at least somewhat close, because this is the kind of Azarus setup you want. So normally we wouldn't be able to swipe there, but we can simply take the Azarus, we get the Doomskull, and we're pretty much good to go. And it can average about 1 per minute, and you pretty much just keep doing that until we get all the Uber Doomskulls we could possibly ever want in order to finish up the completion of the quest. I believe it requires, what, about 100 of them or so, somewhere around there. And can easily be done in about an hour or so. Actually, I think it might actually be 70, but it can be done in about an hour or so. And there we just end up getting a second one. And you pretty much just rinse and repeat until it gets the job done. At this point, we might as well win out the battle. It wasn't just going to run away. However, we do have a mech gnome there, so it's not a vault event anymore, but might as well go for at least one more mech while we're trying to get more Ubers. We already got the achievement done. It's the night of... But might as well still keep going for it. Right here, you know what? I'm just going to go for Azarus. We'll take a normal Doomskull. Same difference. So that doesn't count towards the thing. Let's see. We'll go for the Destroy there. Oh, an Uba. Can't really move that anywhere that we need to, though. I'm just going to Destroy and hope it doesn't get destroyed. Ah, yay. It actually stayed in place. That Destroy should be enough. Doesn't matter if the Uber gets hit. Yeah, I'll just go kill this guy. I am very surprised he has not ran away after all this. All this messing around that we're doing right now. Also, Azarus can land extra turns if you really wanted to. Something you would normally need to bother with. I'll keep poking him down. I have a strong feeling he shall escape. But at this point, we're already committed to the battle. We might as well go all the way. We might as well go all the way. Get the Uber there. How on earth has he not ran away yet? Well, no wonder why he keeps going up. He keeps tanking up because of the thing. Very unfortunate. Ooh, extra turn there. Better than taking the Doomskull, though we did have the option of taking the Doomskull if we really wanted to. I am so surprised he has not won yet. Or escaped, I should say. Let's see. Do I just take a skull? Yes, because I can take a skull and just a skull and then we won. Unfortunately, we can't take that Uber Doomskull, but it's worth it to claim this. Imagine if we actually got a Vault Key from this. Nope. No, we got Mythic Ingots. Anyways, that's that. We got like, what, 3 Uber Doomskulls during that? I think that was about 3 minutes, probably around there. But it's basically 1 per minute, and one of the more efficient ways. I have heard some people on other platforms say that they could just explode it and it still works. However, last I checked on PC, it does require you to manually take it, and you can do that with a convert, and that's pretty much what that team does. Anyways, as far as other teams, as far as everything else that we got going on this week, let's start going through those. Okay, so next one. As far as the yellow Tower of Doom, do keep in mind you cannot devour the Doom itself. However, you could just use a High King Iron Gut of pretty much any version you want and just do it that way. You get your Devours. You can use the Mirror to keep it alive. Forest Guardian for the Skull Spam. Pretty much good to go. Harping Mage is there for mana accumulation. As far as a cheaper yellow, you can literally just spam Finesse. You can go with any weapon. You are not color restricted as far as your weapon is concerned. So you are allowed to use any colored weapon that you want. In this particular instance, we're just using Doom Scythe because it converts all the yellows into Doomskulls. It also gets 5 additional Doomskulls whenever up against a Doom, which is pretty relevant for Tower of Doom because, well, you're up against a Doom almost every other battle because it's the final battle of every single floor there. So you do end up getting quite a bit of usage there. However, you can replace this with pretty much any weapon you want in the game, like Nimbus Bow or literally anything. And you basically just keep killing out with Finesse. You have to use Stormcaller, so you have the Yellow Storm, and it basically just gets infinite damage, and just keep cycling them around until you win. Pretty straightforward. Of course, the Uber Doomskull one that we just showed, if you want to go farm it up if you haven't already done so already, you can end up getting it done in under an hour, finishing out whatever you need. This was mostly just a show tower. One funny mechanic that you can do with it, because that's a viable thing that has indestructible, is you can use a stealthy hero class so they can't end up targeting you directly, and then you can have a bunch of towers set up, and they basically will have to hit the towers while your hero stays safe. So it's a little bit of a build that you could do, and it kind of just messes with the spam tower since it's kind of easy to end up getting a lot of them. Overall, I don't feel like there's going to be too much that's viable for it. It probably will get incorporated to at least one of the 6 Guild War Defend teams. However, beyond that, I don't really feel like it's going to be used for too much, other than maybe an Obsidious alternative. However, if you actually already own Obsidious, I don't feel like you would use it much compared to actually using Obsidious instead. As far as soul farming, we showed a video last Friday going over a bunch of different farming teams. However, as far as the 2 soul farming ones, they're worth mentioning again, just because Ferrous Raw is once again available. So Phylactery, Sacrificial Priest, Ferrous Raw, and Leprechaun, Explore 1, really good. Just do it in any of the easier to kill ones like Cinema Mirage, Blackhawk, or Wild Plains, all easy to kill locations on Explore 1. And then for Explore 5 or 6, if you have the damage, you can use Judge of the Dead that came in about a month ago, followed by Phylactery, Ferrous Raw, and Leprechaun. And this is personally what I've been using quite a bit lately. It can end up killing at pretty much the exact same speed, just a little bit slower than a Phoenicia team, while getting a pretty high amount of souls, pretty much 50,000 per hour, as both of them pretty much do about 50,000 per hour, except this one can do it on Explore 5 or 6, which is pretty nice. Aside from that, we have ourselves the Fangmore faction, which is a red-blue restriction for tomorrow for the Tuesday event. You can end up just going with a Farce Troll into King Gob Truffle and Mirage Queen. You can go with double Tesla and whatever else you want to run over with blue and red. Quite a few options, but standard truffles do go all the way. As far as Pierre faction, double Chief Dragoon into a Shaman of Set and the Satori tends to be the way to go. Shaman of Set you do to get a bunch of reds. Reds fills in everything else. Chief Dagon basically gives you a bunch of attack, and you get a bunch of additional bleeds, which boost ratio everything else, and you get a bunch of skull spam to kill them all out. And that's pretty much the game plan. It's just to attack buff like crazy, and you mostly just have 2 Chief Dagons in case the first one ends up dying, just so you have a backup. And that's pretty much just the game plan. You attack buff like crazy, and then you just kill them with skull spam over and over again until you win. That is the premise of the Pierre faction. And as far as the Dragon Guard hero class, you can end up just going with one really heavy AoE option, either Dustbringer, or if you don't have Dustbringer, go with Black Manacles or something similar, and a Divinia, Dragon Spirit, and a Essencia, the new dragon. We will be going over a bunch of teams probably later in the week as we test this more. However, I do want to test it a little bit before we end up showing more teams for it, but this is just something that you can use for the Thursday class event. But it's definitely something we'll be experimenting on our nightly streams, as we do every single night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the channel. But yeah, it's definitely something we'll mess around with a little bit more throughout the week, and then probably cover a video once we have a couple solid teams, because there has to be at least a few good 50% Dragon start teams out there. But if nothing else, that'll be pretty easy to run out the event with. Since Dragon Guard can finally have half mana start, which honestly is probably the biggest synergy that's going to have, is the kind of things that you can end up doing with Dragon Guard, because Dragon Guard's a pretty good hero class. It has a lot of good options on it. The main thing that's been holding it back, of course, is this little bit of lack of mana. But has quite a few things going for it. Has triple damage burning, has banish on it in combination with triple damage burning, which is a pretty interesting combination, which I believe is the only hero class in the game that actually has that combination, which is very rarely used because it doesn't have half mana start, but it does now. It also has 10% extra EXP gain while doing this, so you do have the option of doing that instead of extra damage, which can be good for farming in some situations. It also has a little bit of extra magic gain for itself and other dragons on your team, and pretty hefty amount of skull reduction. Unfortunately, it doesn't have barrier spam, like it doesn't gain barrier on brown, but overall it's still pretty tanky otherwise, and does have the ability to start with a barrier, so at least it has some amount of reduction in that regard. So it has 40% skull reduction into a barrier, so definitely a pretty good hero class, definitely worth experimenting with, especially now that has a half mana start this week. But anyways, guys, that'll wrap it up for this video. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be covering Tower of Doom tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we do every single night. We'll also probably be messing with the new Legends quite a bit here and there to see what we can end up doing with it, see what kind of viable teams we can get rolling, and go from there. Anyways, guys, hope you all have a wonderful week. Best of luck with everything, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye, everyone, and thanks for watching.